This map was drawn in 1513, but it shows Antarctica centuries before it was discovered. Even worse, it shows it with ice. In 1929, a dusty bundle of forgotten maps was discovered in the basement of Istanbul's Topkapi Palace. Among them was something strange, a fragment of a world map drawn on gazelle skin, dated 1513 and signed by an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis. But this wasn't just a map of known lands. It showed something impossible. At the southern end of South America, the map outlined a massive landmass, roughly in the position of Antarctica. There was just one problem. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820, over 300 years after this map was drawn. And stranger still, the map showed coastlines free of ice, which modern geologists believe haven't been visible for over 6,000 years. How could a 16th century sailor chart something under miles of glacial ice? Some dismissed it as coincidence. Others suggested it was miscopied from older Greek or Arab charts. But then more pieces emerged. In the following decades, historians found other pre-modern maps, like the Orontius-Phineus map, 1531, and the Boucher map, 1737, also showing Antarctica's subglacial shape with bizarre accuracy. And they weren't based on guesses. Some of these maps aligned remarkably with modern seismic data, details that scientists only uncovered with ground-penetrating radar in the 1950s. That begs the question, were these explorers just lucky? Did they find ancient sources we've lost today? Or is there something deeper, hidden in the maps, a forgotten record of a very different Earth? To understand how this mystery began, we need to learn more about the man behind the map, Piri Reis. To understand the strange accuracy of the 1513 map, we need to understand the man who created it, Piri Reis. Born around 1465 in what is now modern-day Turkey, Piri was raised in the Ottoman port city of Gallipoli, surrounded by ships, traders, and tales of distant lands. His uncle was Kemal Reis, one of the empire's top naval commanders, and from a young age, Piri joined him at sea. The Ottoman Empire in the 15th century was a global superpower, rivaling European fleets in the Mediterranean. As Piri sailed with his uncle, he wasn't just learning navigation. He was collecting information, maps, sea charts, and rumors from every port they touched. When Kemal Reis died in 1511, Piri returned home and began compiling everything he had gathered into a new kind of map, one that combined ancient knowledge, recent discoveries, and first-hand reports. What makes his 1513 map unique is what's written on it. Around the edges are handwritten notes, annotations in Ottoman Turkish, explaining where he got his information. One note reads, "This section is based on a map drawn by Columbus." Another claims, "Some parts are taken from ancient sources, maps found in the time of Alexander the Great." This suggests that Piri wasn't simply drawing what he saw, he was assembling forgotten knowledge, some of it possibly thousands of years old. And that leads to a deeper question. What were these ancient maps he referred to? Who drew them? And how did they depict a frozen continent that should have been unknown for millennia? Strangely, after producing several more detailed world maps and a famous book of naval charts called the Kitab-i Bahariya, Piri Reis fell out of favor with the Ottoman court. In 1554, after a final mission to the Persian Gulf, he was arrested and executed, possibly for disobeying orders or political reasons. His knowledge, like his life, was cut short. But his 1513 map remained, a puzzle historians are still trying to solve. In 1737, over 200 years after Piri Reis created his world map, a French geographer named Philippe Boisch published something even more unsettling, a map showing Antarctica without ice. Boisch was not a conspiracy theorist or explorer. He was the official royal cartographer to the King of France and one of the most respected geographers of his time. His maps were based on a combination of ancient texts, marine exploration logs, and mathematical projections. What stunned later researchers was that his map showed two distinct landmasses in the Antarctic region, not a solid white continent like we see today. This idea seemed absurd in the 18th century. Antarctica wasn't fully explored until the 20th century. But fast forward to 1958, when scientists conducted a full radar scan of Antarctica during the International Geophysical Year. What they found shocked them. Underneath the miles of ice, Antarctica isn't a single landmass. It's made up of two major pieces, separated by mountains, valleys, and even rivers frozen under glacial ice. Just like Bosch had drawn. How could someone in 1737 have mapped land he couldn't possibly have seen? According to Bosch's own writing, he based parts of his map on ancient sea charts no longer in circulation. Once again, we see a hint of some forgotten source material, passed down from ancient seafarers who, somehow, knew what lay under the southern ice. This wasn't just speculation. In 1966, Professor Charles Hapgood, a Harvard-educated historian, published a groundbreaking study, Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings. Hapgood argued that these pre-modern maps weren't fictions. They were fragments of a lost global civilization with scientific knowledge beyond what we give them credit for. Even Albert Einstein reviewed Hapgood's work and offered his support, writing, "If Hapgood is correct, his findings may be of great importance to everything related to the history of civilization." Hapgood's theory was that a technologically advanced seafaring culture existed over 10,000 years ago, and that their knowledge was passed down to later civilizations, Greeks, Egyptians, Arabs, and eventually to people like Piri Reis and Bosch. Skeptics argue that these maps are just misinterpretations or imaginative projections. But the accuracy of coastlines, the correct placement of mountain ranges, and the strange mathematical proportions in Bosch's maps suggest something more. Could these charts be relics from an era where told never existed? If so, who were the ancient mapmakers? And how did they know about a land that modern humans only discovered after World War I? Antarctica today is one of the most remote, desolate places on Earth, buried under nearly 2 miles of ice, with temperatures reaching -80 degrees Fahrenheit. But was it always like this? Ice core samples drilled deep into Antarctica's ancient layers suggest that the continent was not always frozen. According to glaciologists, there is evidence that parts of Antarctica may have been ice-free as recently as 6,000 years ago, possibly supporting forests, rivers, and life. In fact, the East Antarctic ice sheet, once thought to be millions of years old, may have experienced rapid melting and refreezing events over the past 10,000 years. So what could cause such a dramatic change? One explanation, as wild as it may sound, is the theory of a rapid pole shift. The Earth rotates around an axis, but that axis isn't fixed. It can wobble slightly over time, a phenomenon called true polar wander. Some researchers believe that a cataclysmic geological event, like a shift in the Earth's crust, could have suddenly displaced the polar regions by thousands of miles. In this theory, Antarctica wasn't always at the South Pole. It may have once been located further north in a temperate climate before sliding to its current frozen position in a matter of years or decades. If this happened, it could explain why ancient maps recorded a warm, ice-free Antarctica and why it's now entombed under ice. It could also align with the ancient flood myths found in nearly every civilization, from the story of Noah to the sinking of Atlantis to the Aztec tale of a drowned homeland. Could these myths be memories of a rapid climate collapse? The pole shift theory remains controversial. Mainstream scientists agree that Earth's magnetic poles do move, and they're moving now, but say a sudden physical pole displacement is highly unlikely. Still, some researchers point to magnetic anomalies, fossilized tropical plants found beneath the ice, and strange warming events recorded in ice cores as possible clues. If Antarctica was once green, explored, and mapped, who was there? And why would ancient people preserve that knowledge if they knew it would one day disappear? We've seen the impossible maps, The ancient names and forgotten fragments, the strange scientific alignments that make no sense for their time. So what do we make of it all? The mystery of Antarctica and the ancient maps that seem to show it without ice continues to puzzle scientists, historians, and researchers around the world.
This formation here on the map.
And see how it aligns with the seismic data on screen.
Incredible.
Mainstream scholars tend to agree on one point. The maps are real. They were drawn when they say they were drawn, and the details, especially in the Buach and Piri Reis maps, are hard to ignore. But how those cartographers knew what they did, that's still up for debate. Were these maps based on long-lost charts passed down for thousands of years? Did ancient civilizations possess seafaring technology or even aerial observation methods far beyond what we assume? Some theories get more exotic, from Atlantean engineers to time-traveling observers, even suggestions that these were messages passed on by civilizations older than we can comprehend. But there's also a deeper, more grounded message in these mysteries. Throughout history, humans have preserved knowledge, often in fragile, obscure forms, from cave paintings to codices to carved stones. Some of that knowledge survived, most of it didn't. What if the ancient maps weren't just tools, but warnings? Warnings that the world can change, that climates can shift, that whole continents can be lost to time, ice, or water. In today's world of rising seas and melting ice caps, the strange accuracy of ancient maps may remind us of something we've forgotten. We are not the first civilization to face environmental collapse, and we may not be the last. So maybe these maps aren't just mysteries. They're a mirror, a quiet message whispered from the past. Not, "Look what we found," but "Look what can be lost."